Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Roadside Oddities. This episode is a little different than our normal episodes where we focus a lot on the national parks across the United States or the e-bike riding. We've got a special episode where we are at the Lost Coast Trail. And for those unfamiliar with the Lost Coast Trail, it is a legendary, and I do mean that, California backpacking trail that runs mostly from Shelter Cove, California to the Mattole Beach trailhead area. Shelter Cove, for those unfamiliar with the California geography, is about 4 hours or so north of San Francisco. In fact, that's kind of what we did for this trip. We flew into San Francisco and then drove up to what I guess you could call the mountains. It's not very flat up in the Humboldt County area, and takes some time to get to your destination. Very windy roads to Shelter Cove. Shelter Cove itself is not very big when it comes to places to stay and restaurants and those type of things. It's very limited. I'm not even sure if there was a gas station. That's another key, is to make sure that you do have plenty of gas before you venture off into it. But for this hike, what we did is we stayed at the Inn of the Lost Coast, which is there in Shelter Cove. And then the next morning, there is a shuttle service there in Shelter Cove that'll take you to Mattole Beach head trail area so that you can start your hike. And it's about a 2-hour windy road trip that goes north of the city. Definitely, if you have motion sickness or anything like that, you can possibly get a little sick. So you got to make sure you're ready for that. And then once you get to the trailhead's a little established. There's the bathrooms. There's signage about having bear canisters and those type of things. Not everyone in this hike trail is doing the full trail. There's a lot of day hikers. So surprisingly, there was a lot of other people up at the trailhead, although there was only a handful of people that were doing the full 25.5 miles back to Shelter Cove. So for those who are doing a little bit more than just a day hike out along the beach, there are a few important things to know. One is you have to have a permit. It is in the King Ranch conservation area, and so you can go on recreation.gov. They only allow so many permitted backpackers on the trail every day, and you also have to figure out where you're staying at as far as the campgrounds. Before you leave, you're supposed to stay in your designated campground that you let them know. Now, the interesting thing is there was probably about 65 permits or so that were available on the recreation.gov. And I think total we probably saw about 10 to 12 people that were maybe doing the full overnight staying full backpack. So I think it might depend on the time of year, the weather, a lot of different factors. This was September, middle of September when we went. And so it wasn't too bad. I'm sure in the summer, it may be, or early spring, there may be a little bit more foot traffic out there. So the other thing that's really important is to understand is you are in the wilderness on this hike. There are rattlesnakes, there are bears, and there's plenty of poison oak, and I assume also poison ivy. A lot of the bushes that you will rub up against as you're hiking through are very prickly, and there's just a lot of different things that can happen. The other thing too, it's not like you can just walk off of the beach if you get tired, because, well, you're in the middle of nowhere, and so you basically have to finish a hike. That's about the only way out of getting off of the Lost Coast Trail, just because of the remoteness and you've got the ocean on one side, almost all the way through you do, and then you've got the mountains on the other side. Another real important factor is you've got to be, I would say, somewhat in shape to complete this hike or have previous experience. This is definitely not a beginner's backpacking trail, although it kind of looks like it in some spots. But you encounter that black sand, you have elevation changes, sometimes you have no trail, and a lot of times you're just walking along the ocean next to rocks, and it's slippery and the moss, and you'll have the water coming up. So in addition, you need to make sure you've got the right gear. You got to have your hiking equipment, your camping equipment, you've got to have your food. And it makes it tough because you don't want to overpack on this trip, because honestly, the less gear you have, the better off you are as far as the weight goes. But if you don't have the right gear, it's going to be a little tough because all kinds of different things can come up. So that is definitely a balancing act. I wish I would have known that before I took off. Just probably had a little too much gear, which, obviously eventually leads to sore backs and everything else that goes with it. So that's definitely something in the future we'll keep in mind as far as limiting gear or even possibly getting a little lighter gear. The other major factor on this hike is the impassable zones or the tide zones where you cannot pass through because the only path is currently getting washed away with ocean and those type of things. So it'll block the path and it's not safe to get through, and you can definitely get hurt. You can fall down, you can get swept out to see all those exciting things. So you've got to make sure that you download your tides ahead of time to make sure that you can actually get through the impassable zones. So I think that's kind of the main kind of caution points. I may have missed one or two, but for the most part, definitely keeping an eye out for the wildlife. Did not see any snakes, but there were reports of other people that did see rattlesnakes and bears. There were bear paw prints. Did not see any actual bears. May have heard a bear or two at night. You never know. You always, when you're out camping in a bear zone, there's always plenty of noises. And so it's possible that there actually was some wildlife floating around. The poison oak, yes. Yeah, I saw plenty of poison oak all over the place. Probably poison ivy too, I would assume. And whoever knows what else were the other poison areas. So for this hike, we broke it off into 2.5 days, which in reality, that's about the most you can do because what I said was the tide zones being impassable. If you don't get to certain areas in time, then you just have to wait, which is what we had to do on the second day. The first day, we walked 8.5 miles or so to a campsite. It was probably about 9:30 by the time we got everything off the shuttle and headed out. A lot of picture taking on that first day, kind of looking around. You're kind of in awe of how beautiful it is out there and also the remoteness of it all. And after that 8.5 miles, we were at the campsite, and we were the first ones there as far as other people that were out hiking. So that was kind of nice. Got there about 6 o'clock or so, got set up, the volunteer water filtration, which is another thing too. You need to make sure you've got plenty of water filtration, water storage with you. The nice thing is there is streams every 2 miles or so with fresh water. Some of them look a little fresher than others. So there's plenty of opportunity to refill your water sources on this trip, which is kind of nice. Obviously, the ocean over there, you're not going to be able to do much with that. Nor should you really get into the ocean or near it to begin with, just because of the currents and the tides and how strong it can be. But the first day, a lot of the trail walking like this, walking on that black sand, which easily sinks into, and that'll wear you down over time. Let me tell you, you get a couple miles on that, and it exhausts you. It's tiring, especially with all your gear. The second day, we did more like 12 miles. The second day is a little harder, just because you reach that impassable zone. We got there about 3 o'clock. And based on the tide schedule, we had to wait about 3 hours. So coming up here is the lighthouse and the sea lion colony. This is kind of the first marker. A lot of the day hikers go out here. There were people out there eating lunch, just kind of checking out everything. So this wasn't real hard to get to. As far as after this point, it starts getting a little tougher. But the nice thing is you can come down here and you can see the sea lion colony, which obviously you can't go down near. Oh, you're not supposed to. I'm sure there's probably people that do. But yeah, they're just barking away, smell, everything the normal sea lions do. And there's a couple other places we encountered sea lions on the trip, but this was the first major sea lion colony. And there's a little bit of the lighthouse. There's people up there, like I said, eating lunch, kind of relaxing, that were doing day hikes. I don't think there was really anybody on the through hike that was up there. But that was, it's a nice little break to see something different, to see a lighthouse after you've been hiking for a while. The nice thing about this part too is the trail is pretty well defined, as you can tell. The only kind of concern I would say would just be, rattlesnakes up in the thick brush there. You can't really see very far. The other warning they had too from the guide service that dropped us off was to make sure that if you're sitting down on a big stump or log, to make sure too that there's no snakes or anything that are hidden up in there. There are these huge, I guess they're driftwood, I would assume, that have just washed up on shore that do make great places to sit. But you got to be careful of any type of wildlife that's down in there. These are kind of some of the areas where the trail that goes into the creeks area. Like I said, there's a bunch of creeks, kind of the fresh water coming down from the mountains. And a lot of them are kind of in these little grove areas like this where you kind of walk through, but you got to watch out for, poison ivy, poison oak, all those type of things. And then there's a lot of those brushes are really thick. So I don't think you'd want to walk this entire trail in shorts. You probably would definitely recommend some long pants. There are plenty of areas though you can wear shorts. The temperature, I would say, it was probably around 70 degrees or so, 75, 80. It definitely feels hot, though, when you're out there hiking, but you do get a lot of the ocean breezes, so that's not too bad. And just a lot of the rock formations. That was some type of structure that had been there. It is kind of interesting. There are people that have houses out there in certain areas. There's some landing strip and those type of things, but from what I could tell, it looks like more they're kind of like either like hunting lodges or like summer homes. I don't believe that on this part where you're walking along the actual trail that there was a lot of permanent residents. Now up in the mountains, yes, there's plenty of permanent residences up in there, and also looks like vacation homes, ranches, different type of operations going on. So as you can see, you kind of got to meander around. And that was one of the few signs back there that actually marked. That's the other thing too on this. There's not just a whole lot of markings that tell you the Lost Coast Trail is this way or that way. A lot of it you just got to kind of figure out as you're going along. The nice thing too on this is even though you are pretty remote and there's not a whole lot of people, the other overnight backpackers that were out there were extremely friendly. Cannot emphasize that enough, how everybody kind of communicates, help each other if needed. just really friendly people out there that are also out there on this experience. So that was definitely a plus. And like I said earlier, probably only saw about 10 to 12 other packers. Believe just based on everybody's kind of hiking level, everybody stayed in the same campgrounds. I was out there when we started. Not by just because of the time, the walking distances between each thing. They kind of just make some sense when you get out there as far as what campgrounds say. And the other thing too, the campgrounds themselves, some are a lot nicer than other ones as far as like, flat ground, fresh water, those type of things. So it's just a little hard though, because again, you don't know as far as the impassable time zones and the tides and everything like that, as far as when you're going to actually be getting to the campsite to begin with. It just makes it a little harder to kind of judge it. But here's some more of those great ocean views. You kind of head up, do some little elevation. You got the mountains on one side. You got me shaking the camera on the other, so I do apologize on that. But you can just see, you got the ocean breeze. It's just beautiful out there. And this was probably about 1 o'clock or so on that first day when you can get the breeze coming off and the sun actually started coming out. It's just real nice out there. Good day to go backpacking. Probably catching my breath at this point too. Was out of breath a lot on this trip. Now, if you watch the Guadalupe Peak video of when I climbed up to the highest point in Texas, completely different. That is the nice thing out here. It's not like there are elevation gains, but you're not dealing with the altitude like I had at the Guadalupe Peak in Texas, where it's just huffing and puffing the entire time. This is more the weight on the gear, the tents, the bear canisters, everything like that. Proper shoes are real important on this trip too. Obviously, having a couple change of pairs of socks, everything like that, very helpful. But just gorgeous. A lot of me probably stopping and taking in more scenery than I really probably needed to, but catching my breath at the same time. And you can't really see it real well. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's a steep drop off. You get a lot of these areas like this where you're up high, but if you look over to the right side, it's definitely steep. And if you fell, you'd probably get a little hurt. So that's one thing that is hard to kind of explain or show on the video, is just how high up you are there from the ocean. And if you stumbled or anything like that, you could easily fall down and probably hurt yourself pretty bad. And then a lot of times you come up to these type of situations where they're kind of those little crevices where there's some fresh water coming down from the mountains, and then you kind of got to work your way up. This one's not too bad though. But you can see just how steep it is on the over there. It's hopefully, that's a steep little curve there, little drop off. And like I said, you're in the middle of nowhere, so if you do get hurt, it's probably going to be a little while before you can get any help, if you can get the help out there. And I would hike this all day as far as this type of trail goes, nice and developed. It's when it gets down on the beach and you get in that black sand, that's when it gets a little hard. That just really wears you out. And then, certain areas when you're walking across the rocks, there's only so fast you can go. I think there's some sea lions down there on those rocks. You could definitely hear them.
方向。短线的风筝在天空中飘荡，寻找着曾经的
Just a beautiful day overall. And now here's kind of more of the beach walking that in certain sections you have to do, or if you don't follow the trail correctly, you end up in these, and you're like, oh, that's not too bad, until you're out there walking with all the gear. It's tough. It just takes a long time to walk across those rocks and the sand. They're slippery. You got to worry. You got to kind of keep an eye on the ocean and make sure that the tides aren't coming up. I'm sure some people absolutely love this. I did it first, and then after a few hours of the rocks in the ocean, I did not love it as much as I did when I first started. Some of the bigger rock formations there too. There's some more of that driftwood. Look how far we came. Just some more of the stunning vistas. Just kind of shows you how high up you are. And you can hike from Shelter Cove to Mattole Beach. You can go the opposite way, but I'm not sure it's really all that advisable. It would Just a beautiful morning there on the Pacific coast. Walking along some trail. And like I mentioned earlier, this part was actually really defined as far as where to walk, the path, everything like that. There's some of that big driftwood. I would assume that's what it is. They are nice places to sit down, but like our guide who dropped us off and mentioned, you got to really watch out for the rattlesnakes in there. Now, we never saw any, but we also didn't do a lot of exploring around into the wood to begin with. I was curious on the walk just how old some of this driftwood was. Where exactly did it come from? You'll see every once in a while there's those break off trails that looks like somebody's made a path to go look at the ocean or something like that. Which it can make it a little tricky at some points because it's like, okay, where do you go now? Like I said, not a lot of markings, but up here there actually was one that indicated the Lost Coast Trail, the direction, and I think there was another break-off trail you could go to also. So, but that was just a handful of markers that we saw. There's not really very many of them out there. Finally got out of some of that thicker brush on the side, and this was a little flatter. This was actually a really nice stretch on the trail. Sun is slowly coming up. Plenty of that driftwood over there, and this is where I had mentioned earlier that some of these areas had creeks with the fresh waters about every 2 miles, and sometimes you would have to walk into these brush areas to get through them. A couple of them, or this might actually be the first campsite that you could have walked to. And this one wasn't too bad, if this is it. But yeah, you've got a lot to navigate through the brush, everything like that. Like I said, long sleeve shirts and pants, some type of covering over your legs or your friends. This was the campsite that we could have tried to have gone to, but it was just a little tiring after the first day. So. And honestly, the one we stayed at was perfectly fine. Nice little change of scenery too from the beach, sand, driftwood, everything like that. It's kind of neat, just the difference. Nice little shot of the mountains back up there too. And the sun's really coming up now. All that driftwood. This looked like a four-wheeler trail to some of those houses or lodges you could get to. And this is what we believe to be bear tracks. And I'm sure there's probably more bear experts out there than I am, but it certainly looked like a bear paw. It actually had walked up. The prints went for probably a good mile or two, and they actually went to one of the campsites. They went up to this campsite right here, which actually this was a really nice campground. There had been a group of folks that had stayed at it. Nice ocean view, nice and big. This was just also where they had said they had seen the rattlesnake. And then this is the area right before the impassable zone. It's another campsite. Back in the trees, it's actually pretty developed as far as like places to set up a tent. It's pretty hot at this point. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so eventually we got some fresh water, or got our water supply, and then headed off into the trees over there, take some shelter. Being you couldn't get past the impassable zone at this point, so we had to wait it out for a couple hours. And then here we are off to the last impassable zone. Not really sure what quite awaited us, but it lived up to its hype as far as rocks and the water from the ocean coming ashore. And this is the entrance into the last impassable zone, where the only way to get back is to walk along the beach and through all these rocks. There's not any other way around it. And right here, it's actually not too bad, but you can see and it's just a nice slow hike through all these different rocks. As you try to manage the tide. And at this point, you're probably about 5 to 6 miles back to the original trailhead. But like I said, this section, you had to wait a couple hours to get through it for the tide to reside, and then this section just takes a long time. And so by the time we finally got through everything, set up camp, it was pretty dark already. And so the next morning, the last day was about 4 miles exactly, which weren't all that tough after getting through all this, but you're pretty tired, and I was ready just to be wrapped up with it. So this part took until dusk to get through, and then the last day was just the 4 miles, and not a whole lot of highlights from it. It was kind of overcast that morning. Those rocks are very slippery. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're a serious backpacker, I would definitely probably put this on your list. If you're a beginner backpacker, I would probably wait and not do it. Just make sure you're prepared though when you go.
Walau keringat terkuras badan ini sampai lemas, aku tidak akan lari dari kenyataan ini. Tak berdiam diri sampai semuanya